exponential equations, we want to be pretty clear about what our process is. So if we use the same thing, we're still using y equals mx plus b. I am going to plug in 3 for y. I'm going to write 2x plus b. I'm going to plug in -6 for y and 5x plus b. I know you're tempted to just go right to the opposite, but you need to show where it comes from. So make sure that you multiply both sides, by -1 and you're showing it. Now, just in the effort to be efficient, if you want to do that all in one step, I can work with you with that, okay? I'm sure Mrs. Hill and Mrs. Frazier will be spot on with this too. So -1 times -6 is +6, plus 3 is 9. This is going to be a -5, a +2, so I'm going to get a -3, but ooh, this is awful. It's not 2x. We plugged in 2 for x. It's 2m and 5m, so that's -3m. And now I can see that my b's cancel out. So when I solve for m, I get a -3. So top equation, 3 equals 2m plus b. 3 equals 2 times -3. Make sure you put it in parentheses. I don't want it to look like a -3 because that would be inaccurate notation, Liam. You would not want that. So I get a -6. If I add 6 to both sides, I get a 9 is equal to b. So my equation is y equals -3x plus 9 because it was a +9. All right, now the new piece. We're going to connect this all to our exponential functions. So Mitchell thought that maybe this method from problem 92 could be used to write equations for exponential functions. Mitchell's very smart. He's wondering if he's got these 2 points, what it's going to look like. So we know our standard form is y equals ab to the x power. We need to have 2 points to know, you need to know 2 points to create that system. So in this case, our first point, our y value is 144. We don't know our a, we don't know our b, but we know our x is 2. Our second equation, we know our y is 729. We still don't know a, we still don't know b, but we know when y is 729, we know that x will be 6. Now, we got to do a little bit of work. So let's start with the top equation. I'm just going to copy it down. If I'm going to solve for a, I'm going to divide both sides by b squared. So I get 144 divided by b squared equals a. Right? Now, if I know I have 729 equals ab to the 6th, can I substitute in my 144 over b squared? Can I substitute that in for a? Of course, this will be much better. So I've got my 729 equals 144 over b squared times b to the 6th, right? If you want to put it over 1, just to emphasize it, these are notes, always good to have a little extra detail. So when I take b to the 6th divided by b to the 2nd, I get b to the 4th power, so 729 equals 144 times b to the 4th power. This is good. I can divide both sides by 144. So now I've got 5.0625 equals b to the fourth power. Can we take the fourth root? Remember we talked about that a couple of days ago. We used the math key on the graphing calculator. If you don't have the math key on the graphing calculator, we'll take care of that when you get back. So when we find the fourth power of both sides, I get 1.5 is equal to b. If that's my equation, I've got, all I have to do is figure out my a value. So pick either equation. I can do 144 equals a times b is 1.5 squared. If I do 1.5 and I square that, right, I get 225, so 144 equals 2.25a. If I take 144 and I divide it by 2.25, I get a equals 64. So if I've got 1.5 for b, 64 for a, I've got my equation. So y would equal 64 times 1.5 to the x power. All right, that was kind of a lot. We've got two practice problems. All right, so we're going to try to be efficient with this. I'm going to make sure you start over to the left so you have enough room. Remember, it's y equals ab to the x, so y is -2 equals ab to the -1. So if I so if it's to the -1, does that mean a equals a over b? Because I'm going to take the reciprocal and it's going to become positive, so that's -2b is equal to a. This one might be a little bit easier than we thought. Now, my next value, looking at my next point, is -162 equals ab to the x. Instead of a, I'm going to substitute in my -2b times b to the third power. What do you think? Pretty good? B times b to the third is b to the fourth. I'm going to divide by -2 and I get a +81 equals b to the fourth. If you do, hopefully you remember that's just the cube root of 81, the fourth root of 81 is 3. Okay? So now we're going to plug that 3 back in to solve for a. So if -2b is equal to a, -2 times 3 is equal to a. So -6 is equal to a. So my equation, y equals, if it's ab to the x, it's -6 times 3 to the x power. What do you think? We'll do one more and then you'll have some practice on your homework tonight. It is sort of a lot of steps, but if you keep connecting it to the substitution and the elimination strategies you use with linear equations, it's gonna have a nice hook to hang on and you're more likely to remember the process. So it's always y equals ab to the x. You're probably getting tired of hearing me say that. I'm going to plug in 1.75 for y, a times b to the second power. I'm going to divide, you know what? I'm going to try to be a little savvy here because I'm looking at a negative exponent. If I have a negative exponent, it's just like we did over here. When I have a negative exponent, I'm going to end up taking that reciprocal, and it's going to give me something a little friendlier to work with. Either way, it's going to work. But if I can make it easier on myself, that's the way to go. So when I have 28 equals a times b to the negative 2 power, that's 28 equals a over b squared. So now I've got a nice value to substitute in for a. So I'm going to actually go back to the first equation and substitute in my 28b squared times b squared. So I've got 1.75 equals 28 times b to the 4th. When I divide by 28, I get 0.0625. Then I just need to take the 4th root. And that is, well, the 4th root of 625 is 5, so it's going to be 5/10 for b. Go back to the other to solve for a. So I've got 28 times 0.5 squared. Make sure you show your substitution. If you don't have room to show your substitution, you have to rewrite the equation. And I know those of you who are adverse to rewriting, having that spacing is going to save you some time. So that's 25 hundredths times 28 is 7. So my equation, yay, is y equals 7 times 0.5 to the x power. All right, you've done it. This is it. That's the equation for b. Make sure you box your equation for a. I recommend you take your time. You might want to try doing some of these problems first on the homework and make sure you check out the solutions. All right, we are good to go. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.